In today's episode, we build the park's main entrance, continue to terraform on the new grassland map, and finally, we build a pen for a giant rhinoceros, the Elasmotherium. Welcome to the ultimate wildlife sanctuary. Welcome to Prehistoric Park. Yo, what is going on, guys? It's Moral, back with another Prehistoric Kingdom speed build. And today we are starting off on the park entrance. So, after the change to the grassland map, it's the perfect time to start kind of terraforming things that don't exactly count as exhibits and stuff. You know, so we're looking at things like this. We're looking at the main complex, which is like on a hill, which we'll probably have to add in. And just trying to like fill in spots of the map that are pretty empty. So I thought this was the perfect time to start off with like the main entrance area, you know, the main intro of the show. And like obviously you've seen at the start of the clip there, the intro that we like already have this beautiful looking area. I don't think it's quite done yet. I probably wanted to go in and keep making edits, keep like improving on it, but the ideas there I think looks great. We also have the Elasmotherium now, which means the intro has officially evolved a little further. I feel like every like 3 or 4 episodes there's like a new update or new thing that makes me want to change like the intro, so I keep like adding. So like obviously it was like the Elasmotherium comes in, so we changed that. Before then I had what was that change? I know there's like 1 or 2 changes, but it's just like so funny seeing like this evolution as the game evolves. It kind of evolves side by side with the game in a way, which I think is really cool. But anyways, we are working on the actual gates here, and they're this really interesting shape. So for the actual gate itself, you have this like weird semicircle like cut out of the top of like an otherwise square gate is the only way I can describe that. And then I tried at first to create a sphere like the way you would do in Planet Zoo, but I just, for some reason in this game, I cannot get like spherical rotation to work in my favor, and it just like here I'm trying to like find a center point where I can rotate as a circle, but it just does not seem to want to like play nice. So instead I just ended up using the curved pieces and like scaling them kind of strangely, and it turned out fine. It looks pretty good. But the second part of this gate is these giant mammoth tusks, which I just use the in-game pieces for, the mammoth tusks, and it's like a really cool prehistoric vibe. Obviously Prehistoric Park, right? That's what you want to go for. But I think it's like super cool, and it's, you don't really see this other than this intro scene. Like Nigel never comes here in the show. This isn't like a area that's like officially like, I don't want to say part of the park, but it isn't like shown, I guess. My friend Arrow actually told me that he thought Nigel was like leaving the park and driving into dinosaurs, which I thought was kind of crazy. And honestly, I am not going to let him forget that, because I thought that was a crazy idea. I feel like always in my head, I've seen it as Nigel's driving into Prehistoric Park, and they're obviously like, he says welcome to Prehistoric Park, right? And I think someone else, I don't remember who, also said they think he was like leaving the park. But like, I don't know, to me it's always seemed like he was entering the park, because that's like what the intro like is saying and stuff. Like, what do you guys think? Like, when you watched the show as a kid, or recent, or whenever, did you think he was like entering the park or exiting? I'm actually like super curious, like if anyone else thinks maybe he was like leaving the park. But for my interpretation, I just kind of stuck to what I thought, which was that he's entering the park, which, I mean, personally, I feel like that's like probably the right answer. I feel like that makes the most sense, at least. But let me know what you guys think. But anyways, moving on, we have this wall here we kind of start to build, and we end up extending this wall just all the way along as like a perimeter fence for the park. And it turns out pretty nice. The only part that was like difficult was like this part right here, where it kind of curves up and into a into the tusks. And I had to like kind of fidget around with like a few different smaller pieces to make it work, but in the end I think it turned out nice, because I actually like opened the file recently after like not remembering how I exactly built this, and I looked at it and I was like, wait, how did I do that? And so I think it comes out pretty seamless, I'd have to say. But it's pretty simple, nothing like special. I just had to like figure out the easiest way to like make this effect work, and in the end it turns out alright. I don't know about the back side, I can't remember quite if that looks the same, but nobody's gonna be looking at that side, obviously entering the park. But that's the only difficult thing about this this fence. All you do is that, and then obviously the rest of it is just this repeating like stone unit that you continue all the way down to the edge of the buildable area. I actually did slant the fences, which I don't normally do. I like to just stagger them down, but I wanted like to slant like the top of the fence so that the top is like one smooth like curve instead of like staggered. But I don't remember if I did that for the full thing or just close to the gate, but on this hill here that I'm creating, that's what I kind of did, and it turned out pretty nice. It's not something I usually do, but I just felt like it. I thought it'd look a little bit nicer, and as you can see here, I'm raising up this hill to just make the terraforming make sense, because like, I think I've probably touched on this before, I can't remember, but we're working on a limited build area here, and in real life, Prehistoric Park had like the entire world at their fingertips. So obviously, not everything can be one-to-one, unfortunately, but here I kind of had to assume like, this is probably like coming down a different mountain into the park, but I don't have like the space behind the fence to build all of those like mountain ranges that look right. So for now, I'm just kind of leaving this as this weird hill, and I mean like, that's the best I could honestly do. I don't have unlimited build space, and I have to just work with what I've got, but I don't think anyone's gonna be too mad that there's like one hill out of place, because I mean most people are probably enjoying this series to see like recreations of actual builds, and so far I think I've done a pretty good job on those. But anyways, we're moving on here to the mountains, and this terraforming is really fun. I haven't actually fully terraformed a lot in this game. I think in me and Arrow's park that we made, Parks and Tigos, we did like a couple of mountains, but it was really, they don't look that great. I'm gonna be completely honest. I didn't think they were that great, but I was just kind of doing it in like 5 minutes, and I'll probably improve those one day if we ever get around to finishing that park. But I went around terraforming here, and I think it turned out nice. This is the first major terraforming I've ever done, and as you can see, I kind of started with just like raising up the hills and then trying to like carve out the sides so it's a little flatter, and then adding ridges like you'd see on a real mountain. And I'm pretty much this whole time, I'm just trying to look at the reference images and go back and make sure this like little ridge is in the same place as the one on the actual show, and then going back and doing that over and over. On the back side, I kind of like just had to leave it up to interpretation, and it probably doesn't look as great back there, but like I said about the gate, like who's gonna be seeing that? But I take a break from that and come back to the fence. Here's what I was saying earlier. I'm trying to make these like the top of the fence curve instead of being staggered, and I don't really remember if I did this for the full length of the fence, but just for that part I was like, this will look nice, it'll really add to the area, I guess. And here I'm opening the gates, and yeah, I mean, there is not much to say about this build. It's pretty straightforward. I have a gate and a road and mountains, but I actually had a lot of fun terraforming, and I'm not the best at landscaping or foliage or anything like that. My like strong suit, I feel like, is like designs of like habitat layouts, and a lot of Prehistoric Park, you have to really take into consideration like the landscape. Like for instance, I would say like the T-Rex hill enclosure is like, you have to have a hill for it to make sense. Triceratops Creek, you need that creek running through. There's a lot of natural landscapes that inform how these like habitats are being designed, and I have to take that into consideration a lot. And that is one place I really want to improve on, is just making better landscapes and foliage and knowing how to make the vegetation look more realistic. And I'm still working on learning that. I see a lot of really talented builders on the Prehistoric Kingdom Discord that all build like really naturalistic environments. It doesn't even feel like zoos, it feels like nature cameras. And I'm astounded by like how creative people can get with just like landscapes and rivers and how realistic it looks. I saw a video, I think, on there the other day of someone had built something. It was just a river, and it looked like a real picture, honestly. If I didn't see the dinosaurs, I would have thought it was a real picture of some camera someone saw on a trail. It's just incredible how realistic people can get, and I want to improve on that. And I feel like I have already improved a little bit starting on this project, but I still have a long way to go, I think. But anyways, back to the build here. We're just kind of smoothing out the edges, trying to merge this hill with the actual terrain. I didn't want to have like a sharp edge, even though that'd probably be fine. I kind of wanted to make it merge into the natural landscape as best as possible. And there obviously you saw I like staggered it, so I guess I did stagger it with some places, but yeah, that's nothing else to say on that. I just did. So then getting up to the edge here, I wanted to leave as much space as possible in the park. So I kind of got it right up to the border of the buildable area. Oh, actually, never mind. Maybe I didn't stagger it. Okay. So yeah, I guess I didn't. But yeah, I was just trying to get it up to the border on like these edges, and then it kind of bubbles out, so you have a little room before the actual gate, and that all turned out pretty nice. Obviously, you can see I have like these dummy animals here just to kind of get a sense of scale to make it match up with the intro, and it's really cool. It's literally the only animals we're missing are the Ornithomimus and a Titanosaur, and I guess I could use Argentinosaurus, but I just feel like they're way too big. They do not fit the scale of the Titanosaurs in the show, so I just stick with Camarasaurus. But they work pretty well. They have that nice green color, so I don't complain too much about it. I might change over to the juvenile Argentinosaurs, or like 50% grown, maybe in the future, but that is a problem for another day. So after I finished the gate, I came back over here and started putting these ridges in again. It's really super simple, but if you can get it right, it really makes it look like a real mountain. And I took a bit of inspiration from the mountains around the playable area that the devs have made to kind of inform my decision making on places where it was a little too fuzzy to see. Because there's only so much detail I can get from the show on things like this. These mountains are like way out in the distance on one like scene from the show. Oh, I'm looking at the Elasmotherium here. So I guess this means that I'm about to move on to the Elasmotherium Pen. But yeah, as I was saying, it's just really hard to get full details on a lot of things in this show. I mean, I don't even mean to brag, but I feel like I might be one of the people who have watched this show the most, just because of how many times I've had to rewatch certain clips to look at builds. And even I miss things. I miss certain details, and I'm like, how did I like gloss over that? But enough about that. Let's move on to the next build, or next segment of the build, I guess. The Elasmotherium Pen. If you couldn't tell, this was filmed, I think this was probably the week after the Elasmotherium came out, which is, I have no idea how long ago that was. But I have a backlog of film that I just need to finish and edit. And once I do that, I'll be back in the modern day with the modern UI. I talked about this in my last video. I have maybe 2 more videos, or 3 maybe, that I need to just upload, and then I can finally get back to building. I promised myself no more building until I finish editing my backlog of just hours and hours of building stuff. That's on me. I get sidetracked, forget to edit things, and they end up like 6 months outdated. It's kind of a struggle, but I'm hoping over the summer I can get all of that backlog fixed and all uploaded for you guys, and then I will be on to new builds. So here we're a little bit of a revamp of our old fence, kind of trying to add a little more detail in that wasn't there before. This is the same one as the Ornithomimus pond. I just kind of reused it and then added these new ropes to really show that it's tied together. And this is the main fence for the Elasmotherium. This is a pretty simple enclosure, in my opinion. There also aren't a lot of good scenes of this enclosure. We don't even see it until episode 6, I think. yeah, episode 6, right before the breakout, you get one scene at the Elasmotherium paddock, I feel like this is Jurassic Park, pen, and after that, no more. Before that, nothing. Even in episode 2, when Nigel first gets the Elasmotherium, they never show its actual enclosure. There's one scene at the end where it's at Mammoth Mount, maybe, but it makes no sense. So I just kind of disregarded that, and I guess maybe Bob put him there. Is that he or she? I can't remember. The Elasmotherium. Put the Elasmotherium there for a little bit, and I was like, actually, I have a better spot to put him. So I disregarded that as some random place it was at. Maybe it broke out. Who knows? But this enclosure that we see here is only in one scene. And it's a really unique enclosure, I have to say. It doesn't feel a lot like any of the other enclosures. It's very muddy, is the only way I can describe it. There's a lot of foliage in the back, a lot of foliage on the ground, and it feels super muddy. Maybe it was a real rhino pen. Who knows? But I just think it's like a super unique pen, is all I have to say on it, honestly. It's very unique, very, very pretty, I will say. I think our Elasmotherium friend will be very happy to be living here. And I'm just pausing on him right now, I'm observing. But for the enclosure, you can't really see the back side. And I kind of interpreted it as the hills are keeping the Elasmotherium in, which may or may not be true. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm not going to build an additional side to the pen we didn't see. And I think it would make sense for these steep hills to maybe keep him in. And as you can see later in the speed build, I'm going to kind of make some ditches right before the hills where he can't really get through. But anyways, we are starting on the fences here, just trying to... I was mainly using one scene where you can see the full size of this enclosure, just to line up where these fences are going. That's why you'll probably see in a couple places in this video where I'll just line up facing down the road. Basically just trying to frame everything. And if I can frame it right, I can build around that framing to make the rest of the enclosure look accurate. And here I'm bringing in this this car here, the Jeep. And actually, I don't know if anyone else, I'm sure a lot of people have noticed this, but in the scene with the Elasmotherium, where Bob's cleaning out its enclosure, they kind of just have two little pieces of fence on one scene, and it's oh, he's just enclosed by these two fences and the rest is completely open. And it's really strange. And obviously the terror bird comes around the corner and they chase him down, or he chases down the Jeep with a piece of meat, just like Nigel did. It's a really funny scene, but it was just an interesting error. And also, speaking of the terror bird, I'm pretty sure its enclosure has to be nearby when we map out everything. I think the Elasmotherium, if I recall, and the terror bird are the only two enclosures that aren't visible on the actual park map. And it's kind of strange, but based on the breakout scenes actually from the end of the show, you can kind of infer that they're around the portal. So that's why I placed it where I did here, pretty much right next to the portal. It's kind of hard to follow, but I remember pretty much making a mental map in my head of where Nigel was running from Matilda to get around to the portal in the way he did. And it's a little strange, but it does make the best sense possible. And like I said before, this is just kind of a thing where the show has infinite room, and it doesn't have to be oh, the Elasmotherium pen was here, so this is why he runs this way. Because they're not actually located spatially in the same way as they are in the actual canon of the show. Obviously the filmmakers just have the liberty to run wherever they want to. But to make the most sense, just to avoid a headache, I figured out the easiest way. I also think there's a map on one of the Prehistoric Park wikis that pretty much agrees with the exact same way I kind of set it out, at least pretty closely. And that's kind of just a coincidence that worked out. Both me and whoever made that map assumed that the Elasmotherium was over here, so it worked out pretty well. And as you can see, the back of the enclosure is pretty wooded. I feel like when I first started this project, I assumed Prehistoric Park was pretty open, but aside from the Mammoth Mount area, I feel like most of it is pretty wooded. I'm trying to think of any other examples of like pretty open place. I think the portal and Mammoth Mount are the most open areas, and everything else is a lot of forests. Especially towards like the Titanosaurs. It's very forested that way. But I kind of have to rethink like how much forest we have around here and where it goes. And obviously once I finally get everything in, we can terraform around everything to make it all nice and coherent. But for right now, it's kind of just patches of forests everywhere. But anyways, on to what I'm doing here, which may be confusing some of you. I don't even know, and I'm probably going to just butcher any explanation on this, but the back of the enclosure has these hills with like terraced slopes of grass, and I'm not exactly sure what the term for that is, but it kind of has like, it'll be like cut into the hill. I'll show a picture of this for everyone to see so I don't look crazy. But there's like these cut, not marks, cut, I can't even think. Just lines that kind of line the hill, I guess. I don't even know what they're called. But I emulated them to the best of my ability using bushes, and that's like the easiest way I could do it. The only problem is this area has so many bushes now that it's probably the laggiest area in the park. I don't get a lot of lag, but I think Triceratops Creek and this area are both pretty tied for just the most heavy vegetation. That's like, you get a little bit lower frame rate. You can easily tell. This area, I feel like I get maybe 30. It's not great, but it is accurate and pretty, so we're rolling with it. But yeah, so here I'm working on the foliage on the other side of the road, and there's this hill here. I didn't want to just paint in this foliage. I was pretty deliberate about which plants I wanted to use to kind of build up this really thick jungle foliage, basically. And I use this Bengal bamboo as like a filler. I think Bengal bamboo like this is one of the easiest foliage to mix into pretty much anything, and it just adds a bit of volume to any like foliage you're making. So I did that, and I had to go in and do this because when I'm placing trees by hand, they like to float. But I fixed that pretty easily, and then you pretty much just extend this down. There is an area with like cattails at the end, just trying to make it look accurate to this. Once again, it's the same frame of the show that I'm looking at, and I'm trying to make it accurate to that, and it turns out pretty nice. So I was really going for accuracy on this one. I really just for some reason decided I wanted this foliage to be the most accurate, and it turned out good, so I'm not complaining. But yeah, it looks pretty nice. And eventually, obviously, like I said, I'm gonna have to transition this into the grasslands around it pretty well. I'm not exactly sure how that'll go, but we'll figure it out. And like, there's not a lot to say about this enclosure. I mean, we're pretty fast approaching the end now, but it is a really nice one, a simple enclosure, and I really do think it turned out very pretty. I think I might still maybe want to make some edits eventually once I get around to just terraforming everything, and that'll probably be within the next few episodes, because we don't have a lot left to do, in all honesty. We have a terror bird enclosure, we have T-Rex, and I think we just have like a couple of like Bob's Workshop, the vet maybe, yeah, the vet, main complex. That's like 5 things, I think. So we're definitely about 75% of the way done on the major builds of the park. That's crazy. This has been such a long series. I started it at least, was it 3 years ago at this point? That is a very long time to be working on this one build. Hopefully it'll be worth the wait though, and everyone will enjoy it and say, wow, Moral, you did such a good job. That's, I don't know. But yeah, it's been a very long process. Obviously, it could have been a lot faster if I was just a faster builder and didn't procrastinate as much. but I have enjoyed it so far. So here we're just making sure the enclosure works as an enclosure. And like I said before, the hills I had to kind of make this ditch in front of, and I used some rocks hidden in these bushes just to keep him in, because it was so stubborn, the walkable terrain thing. So eventually I just settled to put rocks in front of things, and it turned out pretty fun. But he can't escape. It looks pretty good. The only problem I have right now is the Ornithomimus pond is a little broken right now because I have to re-terraform everything, and those little Dryosaurs will run around and get into every enclosure. Also, the Titanosaurs are just free roaming all the time. I just randomly see them walking around. It's like the real park, honestly. It's pretty funny, but yeah, they'll jump in here, they'll come around the fence, and somehow they're able to just glide right through. I guess it's because they're smaller and their hitboxes aren't as big, but they'll get in there with the Elasmotherium and have to like put them back in the pen and be like, you stay right there. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say on the speed build, so I guess I'll see you guys after the cinematics. And that's going to do it for today, guys. I want to thank you all very much for watching. And if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, or comment, as it lets me know that you're enjoying the videos. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Goodbye.